In this video, I'm going to make, and we're going to talk about linear equations some more, okay? So in the first ones, remember, we had talked about yesterday a little bit about slope, a little bit about the intercepts. So let's talk about a few more linear type things. First off, in our first example here, they are talking about vertical and horizontal lines. I just want to give you a little heads up and remind you, okay? A vertical line is always going to be x equals a number. Its slope is going to be undefined. So I'm going to put that little null set. The horizontal slope or horizontal line is always y equals a number, and it always has a slope of 0. So remember, slope is rise over run. So if the rise is nothing, but we can run to the right or left, that makes sense that that line would be horizontal. The reason that a vertical slope is undefined, rise over run, we can rise as much as we want, but we can't run left and right. So it's undefined. And I always think about the fact, unless you have spider skills, you're not running up and down that line. So it is undefined, okay? So if we want to graph these horizontal lines, it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Let's first start with, this one. So it's asked us to graph the line y equals -3. So this is telling us the height is -3 of a horizontal line. So all you got to do is go to our y-axis. I like to put a little dot at -3 and then just create a horizontal line at where y equals -3. Pretty straightforward, nothing too, crazy about that. If we want to also graph the line x equals 2, this is your x-intercept of your vertical line. So what I like to do there is I like to find the value on the x-axis where x equals 2, and then just make my vertical line. So of all types of graphing linear functions, those are the nicest. So just remember, if x equals a number, it is vertical. If y equals a number, it is horizontal. Okay? Any questions about our vertical horizontal stuff? If they'd all be like that, that would be great. Okay, let's take a look at our next example. On our next example, they have asked us to graph a line given its slope and y-intercept. Now, I know they didn't ask us this, but I'm just going to write down for a moment y equals mx plus b. To remind us that when they give us the y-intercept of -1 and the slope of -4, they have technically given us information to find the equation of the line very, very quickly. When that's the case, the equation of this line, you could just set the -4 in front of the x and add the b, which is -1, on the end. If I add a negative, you can just write subtracted 1. But let's actually graph the line. When you want to graph the line and you're given those two pieces of information, remember, I think the easiest way to go is to start at the y-intercept. Think of that as my starting point on the y-axis. So my y-intercept, that is technically the point 0, -1. It is a point directly on the y-axis. So go there, put that point. After you have put that point, remember, if your slope is -4, that means that we're going to go down 4 and to the right 1. Now you can do the exact opposite, will get you in the same way. If you go up 4, then you have to go left 1. And you can go either or. You can think of the negative being in the top, or the negative in the b in the bottom, but will only be one at a time. So from here, you can go down 4 over 1, or you could have also gone up 4 to the left 1. You'll see that those points line up on the same line, okay? So let's go, I'm going to go down 4 and over 1, and why not just go up 4 and to the left 1 to find 2 points on the same line. Now, one way to kind of check our work, you can check your work by, thinking to yourself, did I hit the y-axis at -1? Yes. Is my slope going downward to the right? It should be always for a negative slope going downward to the right. Any questions about graphing a line when given that information? I would assume on ALEKS that they have the little thing where they want you to mark out 2 points. I would say mark that y-intercept and then count your slope to mark the second point. So everyone good with that one? So if we are given a line like the one we see here, y equals 3x, if we think about the fact that really we have y equals mx plus b, if we don't see the b is technically 0. So we could even think about that as a plus 0. There's actually a starting value of 0. So we know that our y-intercept is the point 0, 0, and our slope is 3. So let's think about that as 3 over 1. That graph should be rising to the right. So we're going to go up 3 and to the right 1. So let's go over to our graph paper that is on the right here. Start at 0, 0, your y-intercept, start there. Count up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, as many times as you want. I am not great at making a straight line. My hands are a little shaky, so when I make a straight line, I've always been like that. I try to kind of stretch that out. You could even go negative, negative, which means 2 negatives to make a positive, right? So we could go down 3 as long as we go left 1, and see how that also lines up our graph. So then make your points. Okay. So does anybody have any questions graphing a line like that? You will notice all of these graphs are using the same information. They are using the y-intercept and the slope. What's great about graphing lines, you really only need 2 points. So there are multiple ways to accomplish the same thing. You can plug in points to find the points, like on a table. You can use the y-intercept and the slope. You can use the x-intercept and the y-intercept. There's lots of tools. So use what you know about lines. Okay, let's look at this one. Y equals 2x minus 6. Now they've mentioned in the instructions an integer slope. So our slope here is a whole number, an integer, positive or a negative whole number. And so what they want you, the trick they want you to do when that's the case, is they want you to think about that as putting it over 1. So you have a rise and a run. If you don't see that 1, some people will go, well, what do I do for that? Just put it over 1. In this case, our y-intercept is -6, or that is the point 0, -6. So it's the same procedure that we've done before. So let's go over to our graph paper. Start at -6 on your y-axis. That's your y-intercept, the point 0, -6. Count up 2 to the right 1. I'm going to really stretch. I like to stretch a graph out, or a linear equation out, because a line continues on and on. So it should really stretch across your graph paper. And that's not super important now, but if you do take a calculus class and we are needing to know where some maybe graphs might intersect or something like that, you always want to stretch out that line. And so that is our line, y equals 2x minus 6. And you'll notice that these equations, it's pretty straightforward as to how you're going to graph these. So it's just practice and practice. And you can see we're almost done for today. Let's take a look at two more. This one has a fractional slope. So what's great about a fractional slope is you can visually see that rise and run. So let's take a look at this one. In this case, our slope is -1/4. Now you can keep the negative in the top, so you can do -1/4, or you can do +1/-4 when you're talking about the rise and the run. A positive divided by a negative is the same as a negative divided by a positive. So it doesn't matter. Pick. I sometimes will pick, if my y-intercept is up really high, then I'll pick something that will take me down. If I have a really low one, I might pick something that's going to go up. Doesn't matter. This one, you're going to go down and then right. This one, you're going to go up, but then left. And it'll still get you along the same path, along the same line. Now, the y-intercept for this one is the point 0, -5. So let's graph it. So let's go over to our graph paper. Let's start at -5. Now our slope is negative, so if we go down 1, we have to go to the right 4 so that our line falls to the right. But an alternative, like I mentioned, because our point's so down low, we could also go up 1 as long as we go to the left 4. And so I'm going to carry that direction a little bit higher so I can stretch it out a little bit. And then make your graph. So the only other method that I want to talk about, because almost every one of those used a slope and a y-intercept, you can still use that exact same thing on equation in standard form. But an equation in standard form, I think the easiest way is to find the x and y intercept. I make what I call my 0, 0 chart. I plug in x equals 0, I plug in y equals 0, get 2 points. I know my x-intercept, y-intercept, I graph it. For me, that is the quickest way to deal with a standard form line. It's just the easiest. Let me show you what I mean. So let me write the equation down. And let's focus on this top one here. What happens when x is 0? I'm looking for my y-intercept. Well, when x is 0, that's going to go away. And we really just get -y equals 2. See how easy we get a nice equation. And then you just, if there's a coefficient on your y, just divide it off. And so we get y equals -2. Now, in the opposite direction, this time, look in my chart. This time I want to make the y 0. So this time my y is going to go away. And look how great. It instantly turns into x equals 2. And so I try to use my 0, 0 chart anytime they're dealing with standard form. It's just going to be a quick process because you can solve for those things really, really nicely if it's in that form. Now, could we rearrange it? Let me show you. If you don't like that, you could get the x to the other side, put it in front of the 2, change its sign, divide through by -1. What do you get? You get a slope of 1. You get a y-intercept of -2. We already found the y-intercept was -2. Do you have to do this part if you've done this part? No. Just showing you there's lots of ways. There's a horrible saying, there's lots of ways to skin a cat. Anyway, there's lots of ways to do it. You can accomplish it many ways, okay? So now that being said, we've got lots of information. The first one I want to do for you is let's put the intercepts on that I found right off the bat. I found a y-intercept of -2. I found an x-intercept of +2. Does that fit what we found over there? Does it have a slope of 1? Does it have a y-intercept of -2? Well, sure it does. Up one over one, up one over one. Doesn't that get me to the same point? So there's lots of ways to skin a cat. There's lots of ways to graph a line. Um, and then let's make our line. Oh, that's so beautiful. Okay. So that's what your line would look like. Let's scooch out so you can see the whole thing. Any questions on how you can deal with a linear equation in standard form? Everybody good with that one? Making sense, maybe? Okay. So let's talk about what is due and what is when it's due and all that good stuff. The homework that matches this is this one right here, 22B. And it's going to be just graphing some lines, okay? So now that you have finished the note sheet, if you were here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you have finished the notes, turn them in where it says 221 to 222 notes. Get some points for completing your notes. Now, if you missed a day, the videos contain all of the notes you need. Just get those in by whatever due date it says in Classroom. Part of me thinks that I gave an extra day. It's maybe tomorrow it says the notes are due. 2-1 homework, 2-2A homework, 2-2B homework. Those are all due. Let's go right now. I'll put it and I'll change it if it's not like that to Friday at midnight. Okay. So you should have turned in the notes. Alex, you have till Sunday at midnight to really accomplish everything you want. And I'm not even going to look at Alex until Monday. So Alex, there are 3 things you want to hit, okay? So let's talk about Alex one more time, because I want you to feel comfortable with what you get. Now, remember, this is Alex is a learning experience for me and you. I'm new to this too, but this is what I want. If you go under assignments, every week there's 3 things. The actual one that's like this week was called 2-1 to 2-2. Okay. That one, you only have to hit 80%. If you hit the little hamburger, it's called that little 3 lines on the left side and go to assignments. As long as you hit 80%, bam, you get 10 points. Then there is a time. 1 hour is 5 points. And that's not hard to get. And then 5 points for completing 12 topics. Whatever 12 topics they send you to, okay? They're probably going to be out of the 2-1 and 2-2 first. They're the weekly assignments, and then they'll direct you other ways depending on where they think you're at. So every week, you should at least work an hour in Alex. You should at least get 12 topics done, and hopefully they're from the assignment that we're in, so you get 80%. Yes. Yeah. Yes, in that week's time. So last week, if you at least got your knowledge check and did 80% of that algebra review, I'm done. I don't care about anything else about last week. Let's start this week right now, kind of Monday. Get 12 topics done. Hopefully they're in the 2-1 and 2-2. You got that 80%. Does that make sense? Last week, I'm not as super concerned about if you logged in, did your knowledge check, and was working some, I'm going to give it to you.